Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are so excited to be with you today. My name is Mike McGuire, and I'm incredibly grateful to be able to work with you as state senator representing the great city of Cloverdale and, of course, Northern California. This is our morning edition, of our Cloverdale Community Coffee. We're going to take a few moments to let folks into our Zoom Community Coffee. We're going to ask, just muting yourselves. We're going to ask you to be able to mute yourselves, and then obviously we're going to have you come off mute to be able to ask any questions that you may have. You're welcome to keep that camera on. We'd love to see you. And,
watch us.
If you have that coffee, we'd love to see that. If you have your dog, your cat, we'd love to see that dog or cat as well. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to get our Cloverdale Community Coffee here going in just a few moments. Again, some housekeeping. We're going to ask everyone to please mute yourself. So before we get into and get started with our community meeting, for those, again, we're going to ask all individuals to please mute. Carrie. Give it a moment. All right. Thank you so much, Carrie. So want to also remind individuals who are joining that there are going to be a few ways that we can interact today, and it is not going to be any fun if we're not having an interactive community coffee here today. So we'd like to go over the format. We'll hear from, of course, Mayor Walter, who we are so appreciative joining us today. We're going to hear from Superintendent McLean, who is with us from the Cloverdale Unified School District. Of course, we have our fire chief here today, Jason Jenkins. He'll be providing a full briefing on the Cloverdale Fire Protection District and what's happening in Northern Sonoma County with Geyserville and Healdsburg. So if you'd like to be able to get involved after we hear from our panelists, we're going to ask you just to raise your hand and I will call on you and we'll get straight to your question, your comment, your concern, your criticism. If you don't want to ask in person today, feel free to drop your question into the chat function at the bottom of your screen. We'll take your question from the chat. You can also email us today. If you'd rather email your question in, we have a few dozen questions that have been emailed in over the last couple of weeks. You can email us, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. All right. So I think we are going to get this party started. Again, we are so appreciative that you would join us today. My name is Mike McGuire, and as I said earlier, I am so grateful to be able to work with you as state senator here in the great city of Cloverdale, as well as represent this amazing part of Northern California. Cloverdale really is a second home to me. My mom calls Cloverdale home. My grandparents called Cloverdale home, and we are so thankful to each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be able to attend this morning's community coffee. And we want to say a special thank you to the city of Cloverdale for your partnership on helping get this community coffee launched. Thank you so much. I know that we have our city manager and some council members on. Thank you to the city council and to the city manager and especially Mayor Walter. In these tough times, I think it's more important than ever that we keep in contact and work closely together. We're facing down a global pandemic. We're facing a recession and, of course, historic wildfires that have been made worse by climate change. And that's why I wanted us to be able to get together, to be able to talk, to check in with one another, to make sure that we're all on the same page as we move forward here in the months to come, and talk about the progress that we continue to make together. I'm a firm believer that there is nowhere else on the planet that I would rather raise my family than right here in Northern Sonoma County. And yeah, we do have some big challenges that are facing us, but Sonoma County in particular, we shine. We shine when times are the toughest. We're full of grit, we're determined and innovative, and we rally when our neighbors are in need. And I promise you, we are going to get through this. Now today, we are going to provide some critical updates. We're going to provide and our school district. We're going to hear both from Mayor Wolf, Bethany McLean, she's of the Cloverdale Unified School District. They're both here with us.
Come on, sweetie.
And we're just going to remind folks to be able to mute yourself if you don't mind. And also, it's great to have Fire Chief Jenkins here with us this morning. He's going to be providing us with a full briefing from the Cloverdale Fire Protection District. All right, let's get into it right now. Thank you all again for joining us. I'll be giving a brief state update here in just a bit. So let's get into our community coffee. Again, if you have any questions, please hit us up in the chat. Feel free to email us, and we'll be taking in-person questions in just a few moments. It is now my pleasure to be able to introduce the mayor of the great city of Cloverdale. His name is Gus Walter. We so appreciate his dedication, his commitment to bring positive change to the city. Mayor Walter, the floor is yours for a full city briefing. Good morning, sir.
Well, good morning, Senator McGuire, and I just want to thank you for arranging coffee with Cloverdale. And thank you for everything you do for your district, and particularly in Cloverdale. And we know you'll continue to do that as long as Mom lives here. So, but again, thank you for that. I want to talk to you today about a couple things, and probably the most important on my mind right now is I want to be able to tell you where, when, and how to vote in this coming election. It's a crucial election. There's a lot of ballot initiatives. There's also in Cloverdale 2 incumbents and 5 individuals running to fill those seats. But let me just tell you, I'm so impressed with the voter registrar of voters here in Sonoma County for the way that they've handled this election during potential evacuation and the virus that we're dealing with. You can now vote beginning on the 31st of October from 9 to 5. So the polls are going to be open the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd, 9 to 5, as well as election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November the 3rd. The thing that I like is, unlike previous years, any voter can vote at any, in person at any location. There's 30 of them throughout the county. Ours in Cloverdale will only be one location, and that'll be at the Citrus Fair. So you can go in and you can vote, and you can also return your ballots either in person on any one of the days the polls are open. You can drop it off at a secured location, which is located in front of the Vets Hall, or you can drop it in the mail. But once again, it's important to vote. This last city council meeting, the city council looked at a few initiatives and we supported them. The first one we supported was BB, the Hillsburg Hospital District, and the acquisition that's looking to take place from St. Joseph's. Without that acquisition, and that's what the voters are asked to approve, is the nod for them to go ahead and take it over. Without it, the Hillsburg Hospital is going to close. It has to close its doors. And I don't have to tell you, living in Cloverdale, we're rural. For us to lose a hospital within a 15, 20-minute drive is crucial. The next one would be either going up to McGuire or having to go all the way down to Memorial. So it's important that BB be approved. The city council has went ahead and approved that. We also talked about Measure DD, which is a measure from the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. And that measure, I'm sorry, I've got so much here I want to cover, but Measure DD extends the maturity of Measure M, which is a 1/4 cent transportation sales tax. Cloverdale receives about $157,000 a year from that tax. That money, Measure M money /DD, was used to help complete the Safe Routes to School project, which is from the, those of you living in Cloverdale, from the Cal Fire all the way down to Ferber Shopping Center. It also improved the traffic slowing features, the bump outs that we are doing on Hillsburg Avenue and Cloverdale Boulevard. I also want to share with you that Cloverdale has its city parks open now. Of course, the COVID-19 protocol is still in place. We also have some great Halloween events coming up thanks to Citrus Fair. A big shout out to Nina Hanchett for all the hard work that she's done. We have on the 30th from 5 o'clock until 7 p.m. we have what's called the Spooky Cloverdale Crawl. And we're going to have a flatbed truck, actually a couple of them, driving through the neighborhoods and passing out candy to the children so that they don't have to go door to door. The candy will come to them. My favorite is also, we have a haunted house decoration contest. People can decorate their homes. I will be driving around on Saturday, the 31st, Halloween, to pick the winner of who best decorated their homes. One more thing I want to talk about is the Citrus Fair food drive put on by the Redwood Empire Food Bank, along with the Citrus Fair and, of course, our senior center, Melanie All, thank you. That food drive is every Monday from 4 to 5:30. And thank you, Senator McGuire. There's a lot more I could talk about, but that pretty much wraps it up.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. We're going to be getting into questions with the mayor and going more in depth in just a few moments. If it's all right with each and every one of you, what we'd like to be able to do is hear from the superintendent of schools. Then we'd like to be able to go to the fire chief. I'll give a very brief update on what's happening across the state. And then we get into the community conversation, which is truly the most important part of this morning. Mayor, thank you so much. And we're grateful that you were with us today. And again, the mayor will be taking your questions in just a few moments. If you have a question, feel free to hit us up on the chat, email us, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. All right, let's now hear from the Cloverdale Unified School District. We are so appreciative that Superintendent McLean is with us. She's new to the district. She wants to introduce herself. She has really embedded herself in this community, and never have we seen such challenges with school across this state and this nation, and we so appreciate both the superintendent, her principals, of course, the amazing school teachers and classified staff of Cloverdale for stepping up to be able to meet the needs of our kids. Madam Superintendent, it's good to see you. We'll turn it over to you for your 5-minute briefing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. I know that everybody is impacted by what's going on in schools, anyone with children, grandchildren. So I know hopefully I can answer a lot of questions. So yes, I'm new as of July 1st. It is not a time where I would recommend to anyone becoming a superintendent, but I was already working as the superintendent principal of a small district in Petaluma called Two Rock. This is my 12th year as a school administrator, and I think I've been an educator my whole life in one way or another. My first real teaching job was teaching figure skating to the winter sports team, a Special Olympics winter sports team in San Diego, and that's really where my love of teaching started. So my background is in the arts. I taught for 10 years in the Art Quest program at Santa Rosa High, and then, but I have taught K-12, and I've been an administrator K-12 as well. So a few things about what's going on in our, as everyone knows, our county is still in what is called the purple tier. We can't open schools to hybrid learning during the purple tier, but we've been moving, really trying to stay focused on a plan for reopening. So as of our last board meeting, we've aligned our return to school date with the rest of the county, and that's January 5th or the beginning of January. Students would normally return after winter break on January 5th. So we're hoping that that is when we can return to a hybrid model. Our timeline right now is we are setting up all of our classrooms so they are ready for students in a hybrid small cohort approach with 6 feet of distance between desks and so on. We are designing schedules. Now, our original plan, as we've gotten into this, and the reality of so many different factors has sort of become more fleshed out. We know it's very complex at the high school level because students take multiple classes and they have usually about 6 classes to move between, we will have a solution for our elementary, middle, and high school for hybrid learning that will look a little bit different. We're still trying to make those align as much as possible so that families can align their schedules and they can plan accordingly. We know sometimes older siblings help with younger siblings. And so we are doing our best to make it as easy on families to return to hybrid. But at the end of October or early November, we will be surveying families and asking families, explaining our models, and then asking families to make a choice between returning to hybrid or continuing with distance learning. Because hybrid is not going to be like going back to school. It's the reality check is that it will be intermittent. Students will be at school only for limited days. In some cases, like in high school, they might only come to school 1 day a week. And so we want to make sure families really understand what the hybrid model will look like. We can't skip over hybrid. That's something that we have to do even if we get into a more manageable tier like the orange tier. So there are a lot of things, contact tracing and testing that have to be resolved. We have to have a number of things in place, which the state has made the responsibility of school districts. So we're working out all those details right now, putting in industrial air purifiers in every classroom and plexiglass barriers. So there's a lot of work to do, even though we've been working intensively all year. The other thing I want to mention is that we have this incredible bond project, which I inherited, and it's wonderful to see all the positive changes going on our campuses. We just finished our football and track and field, our stadium essentially. It's beautiful. So one of the benefits, if we can find a benefit, a silver lining in the school closures to in-person instruction, is we're able to accelerate our Measure H school building projects. So I'm very happy to say that by next August, we should be moving into new buildings at Jefferson, Washington, and you'll see all kinds of improvements on our campuses in addition to the new buildings.
All right, Superintendent, that is your report, correct?
That's it. I timed myself. I went a little over 5 minutes.
No, you're good. You're good, Superintendent. Thank you so much. And again, please pass on our sincere thanks to all the teachers and classified team members of Cloverdale Unified. And I think we also need to say thank you to the parents because let's be honest, 2020 has not been an easy year for anyone, especially if you have kids and you want to be able to ensure that they thrive. I know Carrie, who is our district director, has 2 kids at home, sends her kids to Cloverdale. And she, as we talked about yesterday, living the dream each and every day, teaching and working, and know that it's incredibly stressful. So please pass on our thanks to your fantastic team, Madam Superintendent, and we are so appreciative of your time today. We're going to be asking questions of the superintendent in just a few moments, but first we'd like to be able to get a full update from the Cloverdale Fire Protection District. And I want to talk with you about Chief Jenkins just very quickly. Chief Jenkins isn't just the chief in Cloverdale, but he is truly a county-wide leader when it comes to fire service here in the North Bay. I want to say thank you to the chief for his incredible work, keeping us safe, but then also taking such a proactive role across this county. We'd like to now turn the floor over to Chief Jenkins, who, as always, is on the move, coming to us live from his pickup today, everybody. So welcome to 2020 in Zoom. Who would have thought? Let's turn it over to Chief Jenkins for a full report on the Cloverdale Fire Protection District. The floor is yours, sir. Good morning.
All right, thanks, Senator. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, as Mike said, I've been in the fire service for like 28 years, the fire chief in Cloverdale for 10. I've been involved in the Cloverdale community and the fire department for well over 20 years. We're a combination fire department, which means we're staffed by career professional firefighters, as well as a vast depth of volunteers and support services members. We're operating with a JPA with Geiseville Fire, known as North County Fire. Our partnership enables us to standardize resources, equipment, trainings, volunteers, and anytime there's a major incident in northern Sonoma County, you're going to see resources from Hillsburg, Geiseville, Dry Creek, emergency to try to handle business as quick as we can. We serve over 350 square miles, so it's a really large fire district, you know, from serving the city of Cloverdale and well beyond to a lot of very rural areas into Mendocino County, and up including all of the geysers. We provide a full range of services, protecting live property and the environment. It's an exciting time for us. We just purchased a new Type 1 engine, which is being built now. First Type 1 in about 20 years for us. And then we just recently took delivery of what we call like a Wildland Type 6, like a brush patrol quick attack fire engine. So you'll see that running around Cloverdale now, which is great because it enables newer firefighters who have Class C driver's licenses to drive that vehicle and get training and serve the district. Over the last few months, we've been extremely busy, really have, I should say the last few years since 2017, but the last few months is really kind of put us right back in the firefight, starting with the LNU complex August 17th, which was, the wall bridge and the scare to the North County. And that was very difficult access terrain, thick, dense vegetation, which gave us some challenges. And then we rolled into the glass fire, which came from Napa County and affected Sonoma Lake and Napa counties. Quick little sidebar, in the heat of that battle, things were crazy and we're about ready to lose large portions of Oakmont. I look over and who do I see? Senator McGuire, getting his feet out there and checking out what's going on, seeing what he can do to support us. So Mike, you're always in the forefront, helping lead and a partner, and it's been awesome. So thank you for that, and really understanding what we do and what we need to do to protect, not just Cloverdale but California. So it's really important. Other than that, I'll kind of wrap it up and just say we aren't out of the woods yet with fire season. We're currently in a red flag. We're going to experience kind of in and out of red flag conditions over the next few days. So be prepared, be vigilant, and be ready to evacuate early, have a go bag, be ready to go and pay attention. So I'll wrap it up and pass it back to you, Senator.
Thank you so much. That's Chief Jenkins, Cloverdale Fire Protection District. Again, Chief, we are grateful for your work, your service. Please pass on our thanks to your entire team and all the firefighters who have been dogged this year related to these fires here at home and throughout California. Before we get into a very brief state update, we want to welcome, we have a few other members of the Cloverdale City Council and a key member of the City of Cloverdale staff. We want to welcome Councilwoman Melanie Bagby to our community coffee today. We want to say welcome to Councilwoman Marta Cruz, who is with us this morning. Good morning to Ms. Cruz and Ms. Bagby. We have City Manager David Kelly, who is joining us. Good morning, Mr. Kelly, representing the Cloverdale School Board today. We have Preston Addison, who's with us. Thank you, Preston, for being with us. Good morning. And we have former Cloverdale City Council member, now retired Bob Cox. Good morning to you, Bob, as well. We are really grateful. What I'd like to be able to do is provide a very brief state update, and if it works for each and every one of you, open it up for questions, comments, any criticisms that you may have. We are starting to get those questions and comments coming in via the chat as well as email. Again, if you'd like to email your question, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. So quickly on where we're at as a state and where we're going. Number one, what we did not expect come January, February, and the beginning of March is that we'd go from a $6 billion surplus here in the state of California and one of the healthiest economies in the country to a $54 billion surplus in the matter of 20 days. That is what this recession has done. But what I will say, we are coming out of it. And Sonoma County is trending better than the rest of the state and candidly the rest of the country. We do believe California has hit the bottom related to our coronavirus-induced recession. We peaked unemployment at about 13.5% in California. We're now at about 11%. We're going to see a continued slight decline through the end of the year. We may see an uptick as we traditionally do during the winter months because of tourism for what jobs have returned. Very few jobs will probably be reduced as they always are in those colder winter months. Right now, Sonoma County over the last 40 days has gone from a 7.7% unemployment to a 7.2% unemployment. Again, trending better than the state, trending better than the rest of the nation. California still has the 5th largest economy in the world. And prior to going into this recession, we were the #1 job creator in the United States of America, #1 agricultural state, and the #1 in manufacturing. Do we have our challenges? You're damn right we do. And let's talk about some of those challenges and what we're doing about it. So what we've always known is living in small community or out in rural parts of Sonoma County, there has always been a digital divide that has existed here in California and throughout our nation. But this pandemic has made it even more acute, especially for school kids. And one of the biggest challenges that the superintendent has faced and teachers have faced is how to keep kids connected during distance learning. And that's been a big concern for all of us, and especially for me. My number one priority are strong public schools and making sure that we're focusing on our kids. My wife is an elementary school principal. My grandfather was an elementary school principal. It runs in the family, and we have to continue to focus on strong public schools. So the state has invested $5.3 billion to be able to bridge that digital divide for school districts across the state and right here in Sonoma County. Purchasing hotspots, purchasing no-cost internet plans, devices such as Chromebooks, as well as laptops. The Cloverdale Unified School District has received about $1 million thus far from the state of California to help bridge that digital divide. Sonoma County Public Schools have received about $45 million total, and that is going to be continued support that we're going to bring in to ensure that kids are getting the resources they need to thrive long term. Even though we are facing challenging budget, again, we are starting to see a slight uptick in revenue. We're now at about a $5.5 billion, more than we anticipated this time compared to where we adopted our budget. So things are looking good. So what are we going to do with that? Number one, we need to continue to invest in CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE, the ranks of CAL FIRE have never come back from budget cuts in the 80s and the early 90s. So where we're focused is beefing up CAL FIRE staffing. We are investing $85 million this year to be able to hire an additional 171 full-time firefighters, 350 seasonal firefighters that will be working with CAL FIRE 10 out of 12 months. We hired 100 full-time firefighters last year. We hired another 150 seasonal firefighters, 13 new fire engines last year. We've just inked a deal with the United States Coast Guard as they transition 7 C-130 large cargo planes out of their fleet. We're going to transition them into the CAL FIRE fleet. They'll become the largest fire bombers in the sky that we have. CAL FIRE now has the largest public air force when it comes to air attack in the world now, and we're adding to it. We're going to phase out 12 Vietnam era helicopters that have been the backbone of CAL FIRE's helicopter fleet, phase in 12 night fighting Black Hawk helicopters. That's also very critical to be able to get those replaced. We're replacing and adding bulldozer teams to the fleet. And what is also as important is advancing technological aspects to the firefighting for CAL FIRE. So we have purchased software from a firm called Techno Silva. And what this fire software does, it anticipates how large a fire will grow to at the time of ignition. And it is incredibly accurate. So for instance, if a PG&E power line hits the ground, we will be able to tell within a few acres how quickly that blaze will spread, how big that blaze is anticipated to be, how many resources will be needed on that blaze, what's the type of terrain that it's going to burn through, where are the biggest threats to community. We've implemented it last year. It's now out in full force this year, and that has been incredibly helpful to be able to determine where and when and how to be able to go attack these fires. Much more is needed. In addition, we can't just talk about response. We have to talk about prevention to be able to get us out of this cycle that we're in. That's why we're investing $200 million every year for dead and dying tree removal, for vegetation management around communities and cities and counties throughout this state, in our state parks as well. And we also have spent about $1 billion on United States forest land, thinning trees, removing dead and dying trees, and doing vegetation management. We can get into more of that here in just a bit. The last thing I'll say on the issue of fire, look, I'm a firm believer we all got to work together. This partisanship in the country, it's out of control. And in fact, it has handicapped us considerably to be able to get the job done for the people that we work for. That's why California has now just inked a deal with the federal government to be able to treat meaning remove dead and dying trees, to be able to do vegetation management and forest thinning on 1 million acres of forest land owned by the U.S. Forest Service as well as the Bureau of Land Management around communities that are the most fire threatened. I'd happy to get into details on that, but we need more partnerships like that here in the years to come. I'd like to now turn our attention to the coronavirus quickly. Look, California is one of about 10 states in the nation that is either holding steady or seeing a slight decrease in coronavirus numbers. And we gotta keep it up. And the reason being is we are deeply concerned about what this winter is gonna look like with flu season, which is always the busy season for our local hospitals, as well as layering the coronavirus on top of it. So here's what we're doing. Number one, we have to be able to get our testing result times down. So now, if you were to walk in, we have 2 state-sponsored testing sites in Sonoma County. If you walk in, we're going to guarantee you a 48-hour turnaround time. We got to get that down to 24 hours. To be able to do that, we have to continue to expand lab space. We're pumping out about 140,000 tests a day here in California. We got to expand that to over 200. We've just purchased additional lab space that we're going to get up to 240,000 tests per day here. We'll get another 40,000 online here by mid-November. That will continue to increase here through January. We'll get, by the end of January, 1st of February, we'll get to about 240,000 tests every day. That will give us an accurate sample about where that virus is at any one time. In addition, we're working with Western states, Oregon and Washington, to be able to secure specialty products that we believe that we're going to need long-term here in the state. For example, specialty plastics for the testing equipment, reagents, the liquids that go into the coronavirus testing. I don't want to be too political today, but I want to be candid. We can't rely on the federal government to be able to provide the reagents and the plastics. And that's why we're working with other states to be able to go out and do bulk purchasing to be able to secure those necessary supplies to be able to keep Californians safe. I finally want to end here on the coronavirus talking about a vaccine. And I just want to be straight with you. No politics with this. We will not see a vaccine. We won't see a vaccine before Election Day. And we will not see a widespread vaccine by January 1st. It's not going to happen. We believe we are going to see a vaccine available in California sometime in the first 3 to 6 months of 2021. And the reason why I'm a little squishy on that is we're just not sure how quickly these trials are going to run, number one. And then number two, even if we have a vaccine, let's say in the first 3 months of 2021, we believe it's going to be more limited and targeted, for example, to healthcare providers and hospitals, targeted to those at-risk populations over the age of 65 and chronic disease. We believe it's going to be another 6 months until we see this widespread out into the communities throughout the nation in this state. So that is why I want to be straight up with you about what we think this timeline is going to look like in regards to a vaccine here in California and throughout the nation. Quickly on the issue of climate change, we talked about fires. The reason why I want to mention climate change is climate change making fires worse, larger, burn longer, and hotter here in California. And I want to give you some statistics about what we're seeing here on the ground. According to CAL FIRE, wildfire season in California, it's now 80 days longer than it was in the 1970s, early 1970s. Number two, when we take a look at the average hot weather temperature in California, we're trending about 1.5 to 2.5 degrees hotter on our hottest days since the 1970s. Since 1915, our snowpack in the Western United States has decreased by 21%. We believe we're going to look at 30 to 60% less of the snowpack by 2100 here in the state of California. That's concerning because it opens up millions more acres to wildfire, but it also is concerning because 75% of all the agricultural crops in California, not necessarily in Sonoma County, but across the state, irrigated with snow melt. 60% of Southern California's water comes from snowmelt. So we're very concerned about climate change. Would like, if we can, if we have time, I'd like to talk about where California is going to be heading to be able to reduce the impacts, slow the impacts of climate change. And I got to tell you, it couldn't come soon enough. And it's one of the biggest challenges that this state has. Quickly on the issue of PG&E. Look, I have been a big critic of PG&E. I don't trust their board. I don't trust their CEOs. I have great respect for the men and women who keep our lights on every day and who keep the gas lights burning. Now, PG&E has a terrible culture. PG&E is a two-time felon, both for the pipeline explosion in the Bay Area, in Burlingame, as well as the deaths that occurred up in Paradise. They are convicted on manslaughter. And the state has been holding them accountable for these power shutoffs. Are we seeing improvement this year? Yes, but the only reason why we're seeing improvement is because they're forced by the state to be able to get their act together. So I want to quickly talk about some of the improvements that we're seeing. I said Burlingame, it was San Bruno. Thank you, Ms. Bagby, as well, and I apologize. So number one, temporary generation. So PG&E has taken the 62 substations that saw the biggest outages in 2019, and they've installed temporary giant commercial grade generators to keep those substations up and running during a potential power shutoff. That's been a benefit. Number two, they have initiated and installed hundreds of sectionalization devices. I'm gonna just say sectionalization devices on a line will allow PG&E to better target power shutoffs. Rather than turning down with blunt force entire cities like Cloverdale, they will be able to target these shutoffs into the communities or areas that are most under threat from fire. And a lot of that is in the unincorporated area, but we will, if all goes as planned, and it is going as planned this year, we are seeing much more targeted strategic shutoffs, similar to what we see with SoCal Edison in Southern California and San Diego Gas and Electric because of these sectionalization devices. Three, they finally have a strategy to turn off transmission lines. The Kincaid fire last year was caused by a transition line coming down. The fire up in Paradise was caused by a transmission line coming down. They finally have a strategy for that. But I'd say the biggest change is their weather forecasting and their fire prediction data. So they have gotten serious about weather forecasting, and with their weather stations, they have gotten serious about how to be able to determine fire spread. They actually hired the same firm that the state has. But here's where they're falling short: vegetation management. They are a decade behind where they should be, a minimum of a decade behind when it comes to dead and dying tree removal around their lines, defensive space around their lines, and it's going to take them at least a decade to be able to catch up. Last thing I'll say is this: improvements are good, but we have to trust but verify more is on the way. That is why we have linked now CEO executive pay to safety and not stockholder return. It's critical that we value safety in this organization. More to come on that, I promise. I'm going to end it right here talking about three very specific Sonoma County projects. Number one, the Big Pave. I want to say thank you to the Cloverdale City Council. They've been amazing partners on getting Big Pave 2 done. I'm sure you may have heard, but on Tuesday of this week, Caltrans finished their last paving segment on the Big Pave. As you all know, we've paved 22 miles between Geyserville and Cloverdale and back, a total of 22 miles north and southbound this year. That job is completed. In 2018, we finished 28 miles north and southbound between Windsor and Geyserville. As you all remember, 101 in northern Sonoma County was the worst condition out of any other portion of Highway 101 in the county. It was rated one of the worst in the Bay Area. That was a big priority for me to be able to secure this funding, about $130 million, and that job is just about done. You're going to see some striping over the next few weeks, and it's about damn time. homelessness. We have secured millions to be able to build and secure permanent affordable housing wrapped with drug and alcohol addiction counseling, as well as mental health services. You're going to see 2 significant projects moving forward in the city of Santa Rosa. And I will tell you, we are very focused on all issues of fire recovery, from the Wallbridge fire, from the Glass fire, the August Complex fire in Mendocino, Trinity, and Humboldt counties. That is a significant priority for us. All right, I've gone on way too long. I want to open it up now for the most important part of this morning, and that is getting to your questions. If it's all right with folks, we're going to have the mayor, the superintendent, and the fire chief turn on their microphones. Let's get right into it, and let's keep on. We received a lot of questions in regards to fire and fire preparedness and vegetation management. So I'd like to be able to go to Dan's question. Dan emailed in. This is going to go to Chief Jason Jenkins. Chief, Dan writes in, I'd like to know how Cloverdale is proactively working with the state and the county to reduce wildfire fuels on private lands surrounding the west side of Cloverdale. Chief, I know this has been a big priority of yours in the department in regards to vegetation management. Let's go for an answer to Dan's question. Chief.
Yeah, so it's kind of complex. There's a bit to it. So the first off, we have the Public Resources Code 4291, which the state enforces and does inspections in those areas. So we do inspections there yearly and try to be aggressive with those and make sure people are meeting the intent of that law and codes for vegetation management. And then in the Sonoma County section, we have enforcement through Sonoma County Chapter 13A, but it focuses on parcels that are 5 acres or less currently. And there's stuff in the works now through PRMD that's trying to address more of an enforcement, more of an ability to enforce and inspect and require larger parcels to do some work. The west side of Cloverdale has not been the largest priority based upon fire history throughout the county. And if you look at the fires in Sonoma County, whether it's Wallbridge or Glass or the Tubbs and the Nuns and on, historically over the last 150 plus years, they happen to be in the same places. So most of the resources, because we are lacking in the ability of having a lot of resources to throw towards vegetation management, have gone to target those areas where the fires are much more likely. And in Cloverdale, that happens to be the east side. The west side being that aspect is shaded a lot more. So the fuels are thicker. Well, they're what we call 1,008-hour fuels to burn. So the chances of a fast-moving wildland fire burning to the west side of Cloverdale, though it's possible, are much less and greatly reduced when you're looking at the probability compared to the east side. Nonetheless, I'm not saying that cannot happen. And so some of the things that we're trying to do is work with those large parcel owners on the west side and be able to improve fire breaks and put things there. We have run into some challenges with that. One of the large parcel owners, for example, had a tractor where he used to, create a fire break, and then he was cited by air quality, had to remove the tractor because it didn't meet emissions. So there are challenges to that. But we're working with the county, we're working with the city. We looked at the other day some of the new open space parks the city, the fire district, and the county are going to partner on to look at cleaning up and reducing that 1 hour fuel is what's going to be critical in those areas. So the fire district, Northern Sonoma County Fire, has fire chippers. We have a fire chipping crew that's limited staffing, but we're doing some things to target that area as well. But I don't have a perfect greatest answer, like there's some great massive fire vegetation management plan that's going to create a distance of 100 feet from your house to the hillside. That's just really not going to happen in the foreseeable future, but that's kind of where we're at with it. If you have something very specific where you'd like to have me look at your property and evaluate your parcel for fire hardening and make recommendations, you can feel free to reach out to me and make contact with the fire station.
Thank you so much, Chief Jenkins. Chief, we're going to stick with you for one additional question, and it is regarding the west side of Cloverdale. And then we're going to go live to your questions. And again, thank you all for joining us and for your patience here today. So Rose writes in that she lives on 2nd Street, and is really concerned because the west side doesn't believe that there has been a fire for over 50 years. And really wanting to become more proactive, especially on the west side of town. Hearing what you just said is really, there's a concern is the east side of town. Talk about grants. So the state has grants. Know that we've worked with the Northern Sonoma County Fire Protection District on this as well. Guys have secured grants. I know you're looking at grants as well. You want to go through that because I think it's costly, but there's finally money available through that $200 million, and where you think that money could be best spent. We'll go to Chief Jenkins.
Yeah, so there is a grant. The Northern Sonoma County Fire District did receive a grant, and they've been lucky enough to hire basically a chipping crew and a fuels crew. They're really busy with targeting parcels that are of the highest need, but I don't want to diminish anyone's parcel or concern, so we can definitely look at that. The grants are what are most likely going to help drive the fuel reduction in projects in these areas. Now, we also are somewhat effective in getting, on-duty firefighters and addressing, ladder fuels and smaller projects that we can do. But that's definitely a challenge because we don't have a lot of paid career staff. So we are really leaning on the state and CAL FIRE to fund grant opportunities in the future, and then we can kind of target these areas, and when we target even the west side, it's going to be closest to the house, creating that 100 feet of dispensable space. So most of the time near those houses, you have a lot of light flashy fuels. We want to create that space and help get that clearance. So a lot of it is vegetation management, but also a lot of it's going to be public education and making sure individual homeowners do their part on their property to create that clearance. Because on the west side, if you take from that structure, most of the lots and parcels are pretty big. So they're going to meet the intent of any really enforcement or law that we're going to be able to enforce action on. A lot of those parcels will be able to meet that if they're doing their part. So if I'm not addressing something you want more specific, feel free to reach out to me.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's Chief Jenkins, Cloverdale Fire Protection District. And here's what I'll say. Again, there's $200 million that are being dispersed every year from the state of California to be able to assist whether it's Cloverdale or Santa Rosa, to be able to advance these vegetation management projects, to be able to do forest thinning, to be able to clear low-lying vegetation. We'd love to be able to work with anyone on the call. The string attached is this: it has to come to a public agency and grant a public agency those dollars. And what I'll also say is this: the state is also looking. Look, we have to reform the way we fight fire. We have to have a modern day firefighting force, and it doesn't just mean responding to fires, but how we become better at prevention. And that's why we're looking at potentially expanding the California Conservation Corps. Those young folks who are in the California Conservation Corps, many are coming from communities of color or disadvantaged communities, and how we can provide them with a pipeline to get started with the CCC, and then a pipeline into becoming a firefighter, getting involved with the fire service in a long-term career. Because if we can no longer rely on the number of inmates who have always traditionally dug fire line or were doing vegetation management, we have to look at a new model. And that's why you're going to see new and innovative ideas that are going to be launched this year. I'm co-chairing the Senate's Wildfire Working Group that will be advancing a blueprint for a fire-safe California. And we'd love to keep in touch on this with each and every one of you. All right, let's go to the Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask one of our panelists a question, feel free just to raise your hand and we'll call on you. All right, we have Wayne. Wayne, good morning, Wayne. If you don't mind taking yourself off of mute, and then feel free to ask the question. Wayne, thanks for joining us today. Oh, Wayne, you're still on mute. We're going to have you take yourself.
How is that better now?
Yeah, you're good, Wayne.
Okay. I live in Clover Springs. I'm a 50-year resident of Sonoma County. I started out coming to Cloverdale in 1955 when my father had an interest in a hunting camp where you just drove up Kelly Road and there you were. My concern is this is probably addressed to the mayor. There's widespread concern over the proposed water sewer rate increase of over 75% over 30 months. My question is, do you think, Mr. Mayor, that putting a notice on the back page of a flyer along with your water bill is the proper way of informing the ratepayers of this proposed increase? Is it really fair to structure this as people having to write a letter in order to vote no on it. If you don't write the letter, then you are in effect voting yes on it. This is not the way Cloverdale has been run in the past, and I'm very disappointed that I imagine it's the city council has chosen this method of implementing a water and sewer rate increase.
All right, thank you so much, Wayne. Wayne, we're going to turn it over to Mayor Wolter, and then we'll have some conversation. Mayor Wolter.
Thank you, Wayne, for that question. And let me just tell you, no politician likes increasing rates, and this city council has really struggled with the necessity for us to do so. The capital improvement projects are just out of control, and when I say that, they need to be done. Over the next 5 years, the city is planning to invest over $12 million in capital water projects. They include things like replacing deteriorating water meters throughout the city, redoing the Cherry Creek Reservoir tank, replacing the Ritter Reservoir tank, adding a second chlorine container tank, replacing water transfer pumps, and just upgrading the entire system. Not to mention on the sewer side, an additional $4 million we're looking over the next 5 years to replace our existing deteriorating sewer lines within the city. So it's nothing that the city is looking forward to doing. I want to assure you that we're having a public hearing on November the 11th at the city council meeting. We encourage everyone to come and share with us their concerns. It's nothing, like I said, that we want to do. It's just something that has to be done to maintain our equipment. And some of these projects are mandated by the state as well, so that we don't really have any control over whether we're going to do them or not. And I apologize, for maybe the way the message was delivered. We no longer have a newspaper in Cloverdale, so it's difficult to get the word out. But please, November the 11th, City Council meeting, come and share your thoughts on the topic with us.
Thank you.
All right, Wayne, thank you. Mayor, thank you so much. Very grateful for that. November 11th for that hearing with the City Council on those potential rate hikes. Let's keep it going. Let's see who else would like to be able to ask a question, comment. Everything is on the table here today. So I'm going to just roll through the Zoom galleries. If you'd like to be able to ask a question, or if you have a comment, just raise your hand and we'll call on you right now. Here we go. We're going to check in to see if anyone has a comment, a question. I'm going to go through the galleries here really quickly. Thank you for your patience. All right. Why don't we go to our next question via email, and I'll come back to folks who would like to be able to ask an in-person question. This next question is going to be for Superintendent McLean. Superintendent, Maureen wrote in asking this on distance learning. I'm asking for the schedules of classes to be more flexible, more options for children who do not do well on Zoom, but will be returning to hybrid in January. Offering an independent study program for long-term distance learning is a better way to retain enrollment. Let's go to the superintendent of schools. What say you, Madam Superintendent?
So the issue of independent study is very specific. You can't have more than 10% of your population enrolled in independent study at any given time, unless you start a separate school or program, which is a big undertaking and not feasible to do just for distance learning at this moment. With regard to flexibility, however, let me go back to independent study. A family can always request independent study if they need to be away from a computer, or can't participate in distance learning. For instance, in a traditional setting, if a family had to go out of town for a family emergency, or even family travel, if they would be away from school for 5 days or more, they could request independent study. So with regard to flexibility, I hear you. It's been really difficult because Zoom does not work for everybody. So I think one of the most challenging things is knowing what the pitfalls are going to be when you have not used the model before. Right now, we are talking about and planning for our return to hybrid, And there will be an option of continued distance learning for families that do not want to send their child back into the, back to the school site. Having, multiple models that allow for students to work independently is in conflict with some of the requirements of the state. The state requires that students participate in both synchronous and asynchronous class every day. We have to record participation and engagement separately. We have to record whether they participated synchronously, meaning in person, or asynchronously, or both. So it's we have a lot of burden with regard to record keeping and attendance. But what I would urge parents to do is, no matter what, if it's not working for your child, reach out to your child's teacher and communicate your concerns, because we are really adapting and customizing based on student and family need. We know we have, we have to make exceptions. This is not a structure that works for everybody. And I would also say that if that is still, if you don't get the answers or the accommodations that you need, feel free to then reach out to a principal, but start with a teacher. And the conversation at the county level right now is, we'd love to use this, this analogy that we're flying the plane while we're building it. So it is really hard, if you can imagine, just to go with that, if you have built an airplane wing and you're flying and that wing doesn't really work very well, how awkward it is in the middle of flight to go out on the wing and deconstruct it and reconstruct it. We are trying to do that, and the county is trying to help us, particularly at the secondary level, because we think as we learn more about distance learning, that a flipped model where there is less of the synchronous instruction, more asynchronous instruction, and then small group instruction might work better. But we're really in the thick of it. I just want parents to know we haven't stopped adapting and adjusting or talking about how to make it better. It's just a very difficult thing to do while simultaneously delivering instruction.
Please, I just got to have you wrap up, Madam Superintendent. I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay.
A few more questions that are coming in, and I just want to get to them. But Madam Superintendent, go in and finish your thought, please.
No, just that we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped collecting input, and we haven't stopped adapting. And just the complexity of it is what I want to emphasize. But I hear you. It doesn't work for every child.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Madam Superintendent, we're going to stick with you. We have another question coming in from Maya. Maya asks, what is the best case scenario when Cloverdale City Schools will be back to in-person school?
Our best case scenario is January 5th for students. Teachers would be back on the 4th. That is the same as most of the county. I think there may be one school one district that's already identified February. Our biggest concern, however, is that there will be a surge tied to the holidays, because families are likely to spend time with other family members, and there may be more of a spread. But we've really struggled as a county to get out of the purple. And that's, but we are planning actively and holding ourselves to the expectation of January 5th for students.
All right, thank you so much. Very grateful, Madam Superintendent. We're going to go to the city manager here in just a moment. I just want to piggyback on what the superintendent just said, is that, look, so the number one goal for all of us has to get Sonoma County out of the purple into the red. Most of the counties south of us are now into the red. Getting into the red allows schools to be able to make a local decision to open up. It doesn't mean immediate. It will take, and please push back on me, Madam Superintendent, if you think I'm incorrect, 3 to 5 weeks in that, once we get into the red, to be able to actually open up school and to be able to show that the requirements are going to be met for social distancing and cleaning, and as well that they're prepared. But we have to get out of the purple. So the county has initiated a robust strategy to be able to focus especially on 4 zip codes where we continue to see significant increases of the coronavirus. And most of those are in the Santa Rosa region, and really focusing on those families and how to be able to get us out of the purple and into the red, because that is going to be, if you will, that golden ticket to be able to start school once again. Madam Superintendent, I want to make sure that you would agree with me on that.
Agreed. We really are looking at a month from the time the county goes into red to reopening. So each week as we stay in purple, that month out date gets pushed out. So right now, and the reason that we went to January is it's pushed out into December. By the time we do everything we need to do to demonstrate that we have a safety plan, testing, contact tracing, all those things in place, and we've been in red long enough to reopen, the soonest we could come back to school is around December 1st, after Thanksgiving break. So, and that every week gets pushed out a little bit farther.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. We're going to be coming back to the superintendent. We have a few more questions that are coming in. If you have any questions, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov. You can also place your question into the chat. We're going to go back to live questions right after we hear from David Kelly. David Kelly is the city manager for the city of Cloverdale. He wants to talk a little bit more about those potential water rate hikes. He and the mayor have been working on that communication, and very grateful to the mayor and the city manager. Mr. City Manager, what say you on all issues of those potential rate increases?
Senator McGuire, thank you for the opportunity to address the group this morning. And I do want to just real quick do a plug for Resilient Cloverdale Initiative. We are really working diligently to address COVID in our community and implementing many of the strategies that the County Board of Supervisors is considering. The Cloverdale zip code is one of the zip codes that census districts that is qualifies for financial assistance. And I encourage all of you to send me an email and I'll wrap you in to those co-ed meetings, because we're doing a lot of work to address COVID in our community. But most specifically on the issue of water rates, I just wanted to reference that the noticing requirements that was brought up by Mr. Diggs. We have to follow very careful legal procedures because water rates are subject to Proposition 218, which is a state measure. And so the notice that is sent out to all residents and all customers is intended to ensure. But in addition to that, there was a discussion.
30th, $15 to $20 billion in the black, because those who are wealthy are doing so well in this pandemic. Two reasons for that. One, federal tax cuts, right? Two is the issue related to especially technology and those larger corporations that have been able to make it big on the pandemic. Aaron, I'll turn it over to you to be able to have last comment on what I just said.
Well, I appreciate that. And I conceptually agree in agreement that people who are wealthier should pay more. Some of these, and I'm not as close to it as you, obviously, some of the proposals of going to a 16.8 marginal tax rate and high income earners and then a wealth tax, I just worry that, and being retroactive at the beginning of the year, it doesn't affect me. I just worry about the business climate, and we want to be able to fund things and have a budget, but it is so, maybe that's not happening now. It's just so far outside of every other state. I just worry about our competitiveness. That's really the concern.
No, I appreciate that, Aaron. Yeah, and those two bills that were moving last year, they did not move forward.
Okay, good.
And it is because of what Aaron just said, is because of the pandemic. Aaron, you are spot on, and why they didn't move forward. I will say, look, I think that we need to be able to see what happens with this upcoming election in less than 2 weeks before we start taking a look at what additional revenue enhancement measures the state should look like. We'll see what the voters do. There is a significant revenue enhancement measure. I don't know what they're going to do on Proposition 15 on that, which is a restructure on the commercial side of Prop 13. Again, I'm not saying either way what you should vote, how you should vote, because it would keep presidential attack focus on commercial. I don't think it would be prudent for the state to have longer term discussions on revenue until we see what happens. But I would rather see, if we have to go there because of this recession, looking at the corporate tax rate versus on the individual. That said, I think it's premature, and that is why we decided to park those bills earlier this year, and because of the competitiveness during this recession. Aaron, thank you. It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining, and really good question. I want to go to Councilwoman Bagby. Councilwoman Bagby from the city of Cloverdale, who has our next question. Good morning, Councilwoman.
Oh, good morning, Mike. I had to put my question in the chat, but I'm happy to bring it up. So, we keep talking about the economic divide, the challenges that families are facing as they're trying to implement. They've got 3 kids on Zoom at once, and I'll just tell you, what I learned from some folks at the Cloverdale Family Apartments is that families there who are, they're lower income folks, they're all in affordable housing. They're having to upgrade their Comcast to a level 2 and paying $130 a month so their kids can be on Zoom at the same time. The digital divide and the economic divide in rural California compared to urban areas, it's just absolutely inexcusable. And one of the big opportunities that we've really passed up and we're not talking about is the fact that in addition to the smart train, what comes with the smart train is a true high-speed internet, a fiber connection, and we're talking about 1,000 megabits per second up and down that could be used immediately, would be available for local government, immediately available to the school district, immediately available to Cloverdale Fire and Police so that they could improve their services. And it just has, all of the questions about, why do we have empty storefronts? Why can't we attract and retain businesses? It really comes down to the fact that in the 21st century, you need to have true high-speed internet available for your businesses, for your school kids, for everybody. So, there's just been a complete vacuum about this question in leadership. So, I know that there are difficulties in getting funding for SMART to Cloverdale. I'm sick of talking about that. I really am. I want to talk about the fact that it also brings with it the high-speed internet that we need for true economic development in this community and that all rural communities really need. So, what do we need to do to improve the conversation, get folks to step up and take on this challenge? And what are you going to do to help bring high-speed internet to Cloverdale?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Smart Board should take action on laying that fiber as they lay new line, number one. Number two, the state has passed legislation that now allows for fiber to be laid in state right-of-way for Caltrans projects, which is really critical. Number three, I think as we move forward on the Great Redwood Trail, that would be connected to SMART, at least on the Sonoma County side, separate agency north of Sonoma County. We should be laying that fiber underneath the Great Redwood Trail if it can't be laid underneath the rail bed. Look, there's a common sense approach to this. And I think that this pandemic has woken millions of Californians up to the reality that so many of us know in Sonoma County, in Humboldt County, Del Norte County. There is a digital divide. That digital divide brings inequity. That digital divide brings poverty. And it's about damn time that we start being innovative and candidly using common sense measures to be able to fix it. So I would say twofold. One, we should get the SMART Board of Directors to be able to advance this as a top goal of theirs as they lay new track and or as they build additional bike and pedestrian paths alongside, they lay that line just like the city of Santa Rosa did, I might add, for their wastewater pipeline on Highway 128 going up to the geysers. So that's what I would say we should be doing. I'd love to be able to work with you on that. It's something that we have been focusing in on with the federal government, with the Great Redwood Trail as we move north. The only reason why we've been talking about it as we move north of Sonoma County is because the state would have full authority over that track right away, where it would be SMART from Cloverdale south. So Councilwoman, I'd love to be able to work with you on that. I think it makes perfect sense. And by the way, it would be a minimal cost increase to the build out, whether it is for the rail and or for the corresponding trail as well. Councilwoman, I'll give you the last word on this.
That's great, Mike. I look forward to partnering with you. It had not occurred to me that we could use the Great Redwood Trail. So, and that's just as a follow-up, we also need to see some planning so that we have a full-scale plan We know where the SMART train is going to be. We know where it is going to be working in conjunction with the Great Redwood Trail, and in addition to that, I'd say we need a master plan for the north end of county. We've got Sonoma County Parks wanting to come into Geysers Road and put a park in there. We have new open spaces in Cloverdale. All of those resources need to be connected with one another. So if we could also, work together to put together a master plan for all of these moving parts, I think that would be a great idea for us to work on that going forward.
No, I appreciate that, Councilwoman. You have been a leader with that, and I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to working with you. It is an issue that we're looking at right now. Again, north of Sonoma County, just because the state will have full control over the right-of-way. I think this is a no-brainer for the smart board of directors to bless to be able to advance as well, whether it's on the trail and or in the rail. Let's work together on it. Thank you, because it is the time is now. It has never been needed more than it is here in 2020. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Bagby, for all your work on that. All right, I want to do a quick time check, y'all. It's 11:45. We're about 15 minutes over. If it's okay with folks, 10 more minutes. Is that all right with everybody? We have a few more questions. Thank you. I'm going to go to Chief Jenkins. Chief Jenkins, let's talk about the Asti Bridge. The Asti Bridge is east of Cloverdale. It's put up every year. Can you give us an update? Maya is, David Hubel is asking for an update on the status of the permanent bridge at the Asti Crossing.
Yeah, so the Asti Crossing, as you know, is a critical link for us to get resources up into the Palomino Lakes and the east side of the river. We have been strong advocates for years to extend that bridge. We've worked with Senator McGuire on this when he was with the county, and now Supervisor Gore, in trying to get that extended. Recently, there's been a very good and some good progress being made on potentially trying to get the Asti Summer Crossing Bridge permanent. And I don't have the exact details that I know that I can share right now at the moment, but I know that the county is interested. There are talks being done. It's being led by Mr. Jeff Peters and a group from the east side of the river there, and they're doing some really, really good work partnering with the county. They've evaluated a couple of options for a permanent bridge. So from the fire side, anything we can do to try to help and support that in a permanent bridge would be great. So we're there in those conversations, as well as extending it and making sure that that bridge does not close before we're out of fire season. And just one little light rain doesn't necessarily mean we're out of fire season, as we know in California. So making sure that we partner with Fish and Game and everybody, the regulatory agencies that give us but in longer. Everyone is working really, really well together in extending that. So that's kind of where we're at currently with the Asti Bridge.
All right, that is Fire Chief Jenkins giving us a full update on the Asti Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's all right with every one of you, we're going to go into a lightning round. We are going to throw questions quickly at each of our panelists. Mayor Walters is thrilled about this, I might add. So he is about to drink another espresso and get ready. So here we go. Mayor Walters, let's talk about masks. All right. Kim writes in, how can we get the mask mandate enforced in Cloverdale? We may also hear from our city manager as well, but let's start with the mayor and then see if the city manager wants to chime in about enforcing a mask mandate in Cloverdale. That's coming in from Kim.
You know, I just have to say, as I walk around Cloverdale, I know I have my mask on continuously, and I see the majority of people doing that. We have taken the approach of educational enforcement, and I'm not seeing a lot of folks walking around without their masks on. You know, let's remember that if you're maintaining that 6-foot distance, you don't need to wear your mask. I wear it continuously. So, you know, I don't know if the city manager wants to chime in on that a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, we are enforcing it through education.
All right.
Tim, I hope that answered your question.
No, thank you. So, and then if someone is found not to be wearing a mask, I'm sure there's a friendly tap on the shoulder, or at least maybe not a tap on the shoulder with a 6-foot stick, at least on the shoulder.
Yes,
All
there
right.
is.
All right, hey, there we go. So one of the mayor's and the council's favorite subjects, we're going to go back very quickly to wastewater rates. And again, he's now drinking his second shot of espresso right now, the mayor. So here we go. So D writes in, what happens if the full funding needed for the wastewater repairs aren't achieved? For example, spread out the rate increase even further. We'll go to the mayor and then turn it over to the city manager if the mayor would like the city manager to chime in as well.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm of the belief that we've kicked this can down the road far enough. You know, we've paced out the rates as much as we can, but now we're starting to reach a point where these projects have to be done. And you know, on the 11th, when we have our public hearing, I'm sure we're going to talk about spreading it out even further. But you know, it's time to step up and bite the bullet. Unfortunately, when I look at it from a county perspective, you know, we're still, even with these increases, we will still be one of the lowest districts in Sonoma County. So, you know, come on the 11th, share with us. Let's see what we can do about spreading it out. But, you know, I'm of the belief that we've done that long enough. It's time to pay the piper to get these projects done.
No, thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you for the straight talk as well. Let's go to City Manager David Kelly.
Thank you, Senator McGuire. And I want to echo Mayor Walter's comment. During the previous rate adjustment, you know, council was very sensitive because we were just coming out of the Great Recession to increasing rates. But what that meant was that a number of critical capital improvement projects were deferred to a later date. And many of those projects are key health and safety upgrades that if we don't undertake them now, for instance, replacing some of our aging water reservoirs, it could result in, you know, what are otherwise very significant and costly repairs, or worse, you know, catastrophic failure. And we really, I certainly sympathetic that these improvements are costly, but you know, it's kind of, you know, the adage is you either pay the piper now or you pay it later. And likely if we were to defer further, you know, costs just continue to seem to increase. And so those improvements that are so critical and mandatory don't get any cost, don't cost less, they just cost more, and deferring them can really you know, run the risk of potentially jeopardizing our ability to provide healthy and safe potable water.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. City Manager David Kelly, very grateful for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 3 more questions. We'll come back to Wayne in just a moment, but I want to go first. We're going to go first to the superintendent. Superintendent, this next question just came in from Linda. What will school look like in January? My child goes to Cloverdale High School. Will there be social distancing, and will social distancing be enforced? I think I need to go back to school because I can't read poor Linda's question. So Superintendent, please fire away about what will school look like at the secondary level at high school.
Sorry, unmuting. That's a little bit still unclear, and here's the reason why. We are being instructed to limit the number of contacts students have with other students. So the cohort restriction, if you think about how in high school you have a litany of graduation requirements, all students are at different places with those graduation requirements. Some are preparing for a technical career after high school, some are trying to get into a 4-year college, some are going to the JC. So there's a lot of variability. You can't really track kids into common classes in cohorts. So there is going to be more fluidity within those groups. So we've looked at a couple of models, one that is really ugly, but very doable, which is that students would essentially report to their advisory classroom and they would complete their coursework just like they would at home via distance learning in that classroom using a headset and their Chromebook. The teacher would be delivering instruction. The class would be small enough that, and the kids would have headsets, so they would be able to participate in class. Every student is going to have a plexiglass partition. We don't love that model, but we know that that's one way we can really limit the number of contacts every student and every teacher has. What we learned recently, because guidance is changing all the time, is that we may be able to open it up to a larger cohort model where students belong to 3 different cohorts and those cohorts are stable. So right now, the high school group, the high school subcommittee is examining a lot of different options. We've been collecting samples from all over the state, some areas that are more rural or in different parts of the reopening plan, and they might be in orange, so they have a little bit more flexibility. But we're collecting as many samples as we can and trying to design one that will work for our school, our scale, our teachers, our students. So I can't give you a very precise option. We started with our ugliest model, the one we like the least, so we have a safeguard and we're working back from there.
All right, thank you so much. We have a couple more questions. We'll do a last call for questions here on Zoom, last call for Zoom. I'm gonna go to Wayne in just a moment. And then we have Ms. Inns who would like to be able to ask another question. We'll come right back to you, Ms. Inns. Thank you so much. Anyone else who haven't asked a question? Otherwise, we'll go to Wayne and then we'll go to Ms. Inns. Let's go to Wayne. And then as you were in first, Wayne, last question from Wayne, then we'll do to Ms. Inns, and then we'll go to our final question from the email. Wayne, the floor is yours.
Yes, I have unmuted myself. In response to City Manager Kelly's statement, the city's known for years that these upgrades were coming due and were necessary. I don't have a problem so much that we have to eventually do the upgrades. What I have a problem with is that most people don't read flyers that come with bills. As he mentioned, we do not have a local newspaper any longer. I think the city should have taken more care and put more effort into notifying people. This is going to be a financial impact for a lot of people. If your water bill is now in the low hundreds, it's going to be approaching $200 within 30 months. If your water bill, like many of us who have large lots, is $200, it's going to be over $300, $350. That's a lot of money to pay for water. And I believe that the city needs to look at a longer spread of these improvements and a way to not nail the users so quickly with such a large increase. So again, I really question the methods, and if somebody can make the case that we have to make the improvements, fine, but let's not do it all at once where we're going to double or almost double our water bills. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, would you like to respond, or City Manager, please? Mr. Mayor, go right ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I don't have a good answer for that, Wayne. You're absolutely correct. That is a big increase for folks. I'm just encouraging you to come on November the 11th to the public hearings and let's talk about it. We could be here all day going back and forth on this particular item. One of the things that we will do, and if we have not already, I'm pretty sure we have, is we'll prioritize those capital improvement projects that need to be done either by mandate or just because of failing infrastructure. But come on the 11th, or give me a call. We can get together at Plank and have a cup of coffee.
Let me just mention, Mayor, is that on the flyer, you're advertising that it's going to be held at the Performing Arts Center. I doubt that it will. I've requested the Zoom information twice now from City Hall, and no one has gotten it.
Okay. We'll make sure you get it, Wayne. Do you have my phone number? 894-2521.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So 894-2521. Thank you, Mayor Walter, for doing that. And then the city manager's email address is also in the chat. He has just posted that in the chat. So if anyone needs to get a hold of the city manager, to be able to get a hold of the mayor as well, you can call the mayor directly, work through the city manager as well. Mr. Kelly, I want to go to Ms. Inns just because we're running a little late. Mr. Kelly, do you have 30 seconds worth of comments, or can we go to Ms. Inns?
Go to Ms. Inns.
Okay, Ms. Inns, you have our final comment of the morning on Zoom, then we'll go to one final question, then we'll wrap up. And thank you all for being with us. The floor is yours, Ms. Inns.
Thank you so much, Senator McGuire, Mayor Walter, and our municipal leaders. I really appreciate that you put this together for the community of Cloverdale. I just have a quick question about emergency communication. And thankfully, the residents of Cloverdale have not had to evacuate from one of the many fires over the last few years, but our neighbors in many other cities have. And I still find that the community of Cloverdale gets great communication at the city level, but at the county level with respect to fire awareness, evacuations, it's really lacking. It's unclear, it's inconsistent, there are no maps, and I think it's something that needs to be improved for the safety of our community. And as we sit in Cloverdale, we're so close to Mendocino, and I received communications from Mendocino County, and there's a stark difference in the tools, the methodologies, the manner of communication between the two counties. And while I'm not at all a supporter of mandates, is there an opportunity, maybe where you sit, looking at District 2 as a whole, to pull best practices from the different counties with respect to the methodologies that are used to communicate? For example, in Mendocino, Google Maps is used to help residents identify if their address is one that needs to be evacuated, if there is a fire evacuation in their zone, whereas that's not the case in Sonoma County. So it just, without making things too difficult, is there an easy way to share best practices across counties within California that might be affected by a fire to identify what's easiest for citizens?
No, thank you, Ms. Inns. Great question. I'm going to turn it over to the chief first, then I'll just give a very quick statewide perspective. Chief Jenkins, with Ms. Inns, about coordination and how that would look like related to best practices of alerts, emergency response, and warnings.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch your name who asked the question, but it is a great question. And in all reality, it still is work in progress, in my opinion, in Sonoma County. We've had some instances where the communication hasn't been the best, in my opinion, and I'm working with the sheriff on that. I've been working with Chief of Police Jason Ferguson on it. There's a lot to it, and it's very complex. And so the sheriff has met with us recently on the mapping for Cloverdale, which they actually had to kind of push out a little more sooner than they wanted to with Wallbridge. But there are some areas for improvement with the entire system. I've traveled across the country going to emergencies with hurricanes in multiple states, and I've seen how a lot of places do it. And I do agree with you with some of the stuff that Mendocino County has sent out. I would say we are still work in progress in Sonoma County. We've made some great strides, and there's a lot more to be done. The mapping is going to be coming out, and Chief Ferguson and I on the city, we're working on splitting up the city into its pieces, so it'll be very clear. But what I can tell you is each time we have, a nixle, the police department in Cloverdale has been really great making sure their information is accurate and it's specific enough. We're kind of trying to fact check things to make sure that we get it right before it goes out. And there's two types of alerts in all reality. There's that alert for a rapidly expanding incident where it's, oh my God, we got to get something out immediately, right? And those may not be perfect, but those ones that are where we have time, we have a little bit more time where it's going to be a planned extension of an evacuation warning or order. Those need to be accurate. It's critical that those are correct. And some of the errors that I point out in Sonoma County specifically, an example may be we need to evacuate River Road. Well, River Road goes from the coast all the way up through Sonoma County into Mendocino County. It's like, River Road from where? And then although Wallbridge, we had an example where depending on how you read that message, it could be interpreted as the entire city of Cloverdale and as far north as you wanted to take that. So we are definitely trying to work to improve that with police, fire, and the sheriff's office in the county and emergency managers. And some great steps have been made, but we're not entirely there yet. But if you want to give me some more examples and talk further on it, give me a call at the fire station. I'd love to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Chief. And I'll just very quickly, Ms. Inns, and I'll make this 30 seconds. You have hit the nail on the head in regards to concern. I will say across the state, we've made headway. There's a lot more work to do. And I'm going to give you an example. So we've passed legislation now that mandates that all emergency managers have to take annual training in regards to sending out nixles and emergency alerts. If you remember back in 2017, there were real challenges with Sonoma County. So mandated training is now required. Mandated language, similar language. We have now swapped platforms across the state to be able one consistent platform so that we're all using the same platform. I will say this, we also have forced utility companies, especially telecom, to be able to come to the table. So when there's a fiber cut and 911 goes down, or the inability to be able to send out an alert, that telephone company now has to coordinate with Chief Jenkins, the Sonoma County Office of Emergency Services. I know that sounds weird that they didn't do it before, but they didn't. And we have had 6 major fiber outages between Cloverdale and the Oregon border over the last 6 years, since 2015, 5.5 years. And we're finally getting telecom, now they're forced to come to the table to be able to provide a live person to provide when the restoration will take place. What are the workarounds that they're advancing, et cetera. Ms. Enns, we'd love to talk with you as well. This is a real critical issue. If you would like to follow up, we'll give Ms. Enns a final word on this subject.
Oh, thank you, Senator McGuire and Chief Jenkins. I do appreciate how difficult this is and all the work that's being done to improve things. And so much work has been done, and my compliments to the city of Cloverdale for the communication that has been sent out. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Enns, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hanging with us. It is 12:07, and I know tummies are growling because it is lunchtime, and I'm sorry that we went over. I want to say a few thank yous, and I'd like to just turn it over to our panelists to say their own thank yous. Number one, thank you for joining us. Cloverdale is really a special community to me, and it's very personal, and I just want to say how grateful I am for allowing me to be able to do this job. I get emotional talking about it because it is the best job that you could ever have. And we have gone through some really incredibly challenging times together. And I promise you, we're going to get through this pandemic and come out stronger on the other side. But thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be able to be with you this morning. I want to say thank you to Mayor Walter. I want to say thank you to the superintendent, to the fire chief for your leadership and for being with us today. We're going to give closing 30-second wrap up to Mayor Walter. Then we're going to go to the superintendent and then to the fire chief. Mayor Walter, 30-second closing, please.
Thank you, Senator. And I want to thank you for not forgetting Cloverdale, and to the constituency out there, Cloverdalians, you have a great city council right now. I really think it's important that you reach out to them. You're not afraid to communicate with them. We're all very approachable, and please just share with us anything you have to share. Thank you.
Mayor Walter, great job today. Thank you for your advocacy, your hard work, and for your straight talk today. So thank you so much, Mayor Walter. Let's turn it over to the superintendent. Madam Superintendent, 30-second closing comment.
I just want to thank you for doing such an amazing job of coordinating this. And I also want to thank you for inviting me, and just want to let the community know how much we miss seeing our students, your children, every day, and how hard we are all working, even though it's messy and imperfect, to try to make sure that all of our students get what they need right now. So if there's anything we can do for your family, please don't hesitate to reach out to your school site. And you can also contact me directly, and I'll make sure the message gets to the appropriate person, or I answer your questions. My email address is my last name, first initial @cusd.org. So MACCLAINB@cusd.org. And you can call our office and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Superintendent, great job today. Thank you so much, and a wonderful report as well. Let's go to the fire chief. Fire chief, why don't you give us a 30-second close, please?
Yeah, first off, thanks, Senator. Thanks for the continued support and love working you out there in the field. We are not out of the woods yet with this fire season, so be vigilant, be ready. Jump on, make sure you're registered with SoCo Alert and Nixle. And if you have anything further you'd like to discuss with me, I'm very, very open. Call me anytime, reach out to the fire station, we'll get in contact. So thanks a lot, my pleasure.
Great job, Chief. Please send our thanks to all the firefighters in Cloverdale and Guidesville for all their fantastic work. Final thank yous. I want to say thank you to Carrie Lindecker. We couldn't do any of this without Carrie, and I just want to say how much I appreciate her hard work. She's our district director and is the brains behind this operation. I want to say thank you to Abby, who is with us today, and Jason Lyles. I want to say thank you to Dana from doing all of the tech. I want to say thank you to Rebecca as well from our team. Thank you all for joining. I know it's a little early. Happy holidays, because we're getting pretty close. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, a damn good Hanukkah and Christmas. Thank you all for having us today. Stay safe, and anytime you need to get a hold of us, please email us, senator.mcguire@senate.ca.gov, or call us, 916-651-4002. Have a great rest of the week, a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining.